is there any appetite in America to say, look, we can't abandon our post as the free world's leader?
I'm very worried about that because traditionally American suspicion of a international role, political, military, economic, came from the left. And their argument was at our birth, we were a toxic country, a hyper-capitalist country. We lacked the refinement of Europe. We're a bull in a china shop. And the sophisticated Europeans, for example, have to, be careful about us. And therefore, we don't have any business being in Korea or Vietnam or the Gulf or whatever it was. But what's new is that there is a different group of conservatives now, and some of their complaints are warranted, but their mantra has joined the left in this way. They don't like each other, obviously, but the conservative MAGA people say, well, we paid 30 or 40% of the NATO budget. We were there from the Berlin airlift. We put our cities under the nuclear exposure to protect Europe. We rebuilt Japan. We had asymmetrical trade that we ran up. And yet when we look abroad, there was all of this anti-Americanism. There was all this sort of British idea that they were Athenian philosophers that had to guide us, the Roman unthinking legions. And so there's a lot of bitterness in this country that the post-war order led to the deindustrialization of the interior of the United States because we were willing to put up with asymmetrical trade and other asymmetries for the greater good of the world order. I can just tell you that I lived in Greece 3 years as a classical student in graduate school, and it was very frustrating in the 70s especially to be in Greece that was under the American nuclear umbrella and had not ended up like Albania and Bulgaria that were backward under communism, or Eastern Europe in general. And we were protecting Greece, and we had almost open borders with Greeks who were migrating to the United States. We were pouring in military and economic aid. We stopped communism in the 47, 48 Civil War. And yet I lived in an area of Elysia district near the Harry Truman statue and the American embassy. And almost every month somebody cut his head off. There were horrible anti-American exo NATO, get out of NATO and all this stuff. And so the result of all the years of that are a lot of people felt, well, if they want us out, at some point we're going to give them their wish. And I think that Trump came along and said, I'm going to give everybody their wish. And then now we're seeing Europe kind of shocked. What I'm getting at is that I don't want to paint a pessimistic picture. I think there's going to be some good that comes out of this, because I think a lot of Europeans are going to say, we've got to step up to the bat. Everybody is. And we want to be not your dependent, but your partner. And we can't be your partner unless we spend a commensurate amount of GDP on defense as you do. It won't be the same, of course, in dollars, because given the asymmetries in the economies. But if we're Germans and we really feel there is such a thing as the West, we have 80 million people. It just won't do anymore for you to spend 4% on GDP with two big oceans on your borders, and for us right in the middle of Europe to spend 1.6 and refuse to spend any more. That's not a situation that will be tenable. So hopefully people will say either, well, the Europe's got to have their own defense forces to work in tandem with the United States, or we all have to come to some type of sharing that makes us all proportionally spend the same amount on defense. And I think that would be a welcome development. But that's something that for the long term. Right now, short term, the American government has to restore deterrence, and it will not be restored by reassuring the Australians or the Japanese or the South Koreans, we're here with you, don't worry. It's going to have to be tangible, and it's going to have to be material. It's going to have to say, you know what? We don't care whether it's Iran, if Iran goes and tries to attack Israel, or the Chinese start shooting down Taiwanese jets, or whatever it is, we're going to react, and we're going to act disproportionately. And we'll see if this administration is capable. The problem is that it's very thin, that people are very critical of Mr. Blinken and Mr. Sullivan and Secretary Austin, Chief of Staff Milley, Joe Biden. But when you look at the people who would replace them, Kamala Harris or some of the other people who've been very vocal in the military or in the defense, they're even further to the left and further, I guess, with a progressive woke agenda, which also has an element in foreign policy. So this is I think we're going to see the biggest backlash, if I could use that taboo word, that we've seen in America since the 2010 midterms. I think that Republicans, if things go as they are now, could pick up 60 or 70 seats in the House. I think they could win back the Senate by 2 seats. And I think they're going to be in a position to have a lot of power over who's president. Here in our country, there's serious doubts after the press conferences that followed from the Kabul disaster whether Joe Biden is cognitively up to the job at 78, given his medical history. I think a lot of people feel that if it were not for the inexperienced Kamala Harris, but if he had a sober and judicious, experienced vice president, there'd be a move within his own party. So these are really, we've never had that before, where there were people openly in both parties worried about Joe Biden, what he says, because he says things that are incoherent. And we have foreign leaders that we know go back and say, I don't know what he was talking about. He seemed confused. And so it's a very dangerous time. And when you put all this in the context of COVID and these new strains and the damage it's doing to the Western economy and the pretty flagrant involvement in a re-engineered or engineered virus, maybe inadvertently let out, but the evidence increasingly points to the virology lab in particular, and in general, a type of research by the Chinese government that was very dangerous. And this is the benefit of the doubt scenario, where the Chinese military was not involved in bioweaponry research. We don't have proof of that yet, but there's suspicion. But when you put that in the context and the deterrent factor that provides the world, by saying, oh, we wouldn't want this to happen again, and look what the damage it did to the West, it's time, I think, for the United States to say, you know what, we just got to stop all these superfluous ideologies and agendas and get back to we're all Americans and we're living in a very, very dangerous time and our very existence is at stake. And the same goes true of our Western partners.
Thank you for watching this episode. If you value vital conversations like this one, please like, share, subscribe, and join the conversation.